It's main event time. Time to find out if the Bowers & Wilkins updated 800 series speakers, the 805D4, is worth its asking price, and to find out once and for all which of the three B&W series of speakers is best for you. I want to thank today's sponsor, Headphones.com. They are a unique company, absolutely committed to excellent audio and giving people a great experience. They try everything first and only carry products that they really believe in from brands you can trust. They have headphones, IEMs, DACs, amps, speakers, and right now, they're one of the only places you can find the new Batis, Focal's brand new luxury wireless noise-canceling headphones. Check out their online shop. Along with their supportive community, you will find great customer service and, get this, a 365-day return policy. They really want you to be happy with your purchase. So go check them out at headphones.com and tell them the Robinsons sent you. Few speakers have proven to be as iconic as Bowers & Wilkins' 800 series. Since the early 80s, the 800 series has been the brand's calling card. And while materials and designs have been honed over the line's 42-year history, there's no mistaking the new 805D4 for anything but a Bowers & Wilkins. The 805 is a two-way front-ported loudspeaker that features B&W's signature 1-inch diamond tweeter that rests atop the cabinet and above the 6.5-inch mid-bass driver. The speaker's two drivers and front-facing port combine for a reported frequency response of 42 Hz to 28 kHz, meaning that for most music, the 805 will be full range enough, though for bass heads, a subwoofer is required for full range playback down to 20 Hz. Sensitivity is rated at 88 dB with an impedance of 8 ohms, though the speaker can dip to as low as 4.6 ohms. This means that unlike our experience with the B&W 702 Signature, the 805 is a little easier to drive than other, less expensive B&W models. The 805D4 oozes sophistication and attention to detail. And I understand looks are always going to be subjective, but the 805D4 has grown on me. Over the past few weeks, I've come to love the look of this speaker, even in its gloss black finish. I think that if I had to do it all over again, I would likely pop for white or the satin walnut finish, but I totally agree with Kristi. The gloss black works for this particular speaker. What doesn't work are the grills, specifically the woofer grill, which is just ugly and dresses down the 805's otherwise tailored look. As far as materials and build quality go, the 805D4 is almost without equal at this price. Even comparably priced speakers from the likes of Focal and PERLISTEN seem cheaper in comparison. With the 805 being front ported, setup is a bit easier than other B&W speakers, specifically the lesser 600 and 700 series. For best results, we place the 805s roughly 2 feet off our front wall with 9.5 feet resting between them. Towed in a little towards our listening position, which was 12 feet from the speaker's tweeters, we enjoyed a holographic soundstage with terrific center imaging and separation throughout. As for power, we relied on 3 different amplifiers, our Canor AI 110, Technics R1000, and the Denon A110. All 3 were terrific fits for the 805D4, but the Denon was my absolute favorite, as it seemed to merge my favorite aspects of both the Canor and Technics amplifiers into one design. Seriously, do not sleep on the Denon A110. It is high-end AF and pairs great with cost-no-object speakers like the B&W without having to go too far into your bank account for an amp. With everything in place, I ran a quick sweep from 20 to 20. Right off the bat, it's both clear to see and hear that the 805 is a largely neutral loudspeaker. B&W states that the 805 is solid down to 42 Hz, and in our room and testing, that proved to be a very honest figure. From 40 Hz on up to around 2K, there's nothing negative to report. There is a dip between 2 and 3K, something that seems to be inherent to B&Ws with the tweeter on top design because we saw something very similar in our recent 705S3 review. But from 3K on up, the 805D4's linear trend continues with just a hint of roll-off starting at around 15 kHz. Moving beyond measurements, the 805s are exceptional. While I know I have been critical more recently of B&Ws, specifically their entry-level 600 anniversary series, I didn't even make it to the chorus of Lady Blackbird's single, Did Someone Make a Fool Out of You, before hitting stop, turning to Kristi and saying, "This is what a B&W's supposed to sound like." While B&Ws have traded some of their once reserved or darker sound for more treble and detail in recent years, the 800 series has always excelled at striking a balance between the low, the mids, and the highs, regardless of your source material. And while some of you may be shaking your head and thinking to yourself,
Well, he just used a lot of words to describe a neutral speaker.
know that in comparison to neutral darlings like those from Harman or Harbeth, the B&W isn't going to seem as neutral. It has a hint of flavor. For example, the 805's treble doesn't roll off quite as dramatically as Rebel, but it doesn't necessarily inject any added energy that you're going to find with, say, Focal or Sonus Faber. Yet, the 805 sounds more like the latter while technically behaving more like the Revels, making them easier to listen to for longer periods of time and at higher volumes without fatigue or the highs coming across as too in your face. See? Balance. As for the mids, for me, it doesn't get any better. I love the way not only vocals sounded through the 805 D4s, but also how instruments like acoustic guitars and other string instruments are rendered. Pristine, effortless, and colorless is how I would describe the 805's mid-range. Everything within the mid-range has a more true-to-life presence because nothing about its cabinet or construction gets in the way and muddies up the sound. The 805s have an almost open baffle-like quality to the mid-range, which is a good thing in my book. Now about that bass, for many of you, I would not be surprised if you felt the 805 was a bit light in the bass department. Compared to the Focal KANTA 1s, the 805s sound as if they have less bass. But that's only because the KANTA's bass appears to be mildly boosted, or its more rear-facing port allows it to interact more with your room's boundaries. Either way, both speakers play to about the same actual low-end frequencies. As a result, the 805's bass is one of quickness rather than outright oomph. So, like with the rest of the speaker's sound, detail, inflection, and finesse is on the menu more than outright grunt. The double bass throughout Lady Blackbird's new album remained textural and plucky, though it did seem larger, rounder, and a bit deeper through the Focals. Which is best is ultimately going to be up to you, the listener. But I found the KANTA could, at times, sound a little bloated, whereas I never came away with that impression when listening to the 805s. As for soundstage and dynamics, the 805 is capable of recreating whatever soundstage exists within the recording and does so at the highest level. Center imaging and dispersion is superb, and in our room at least, rank among the best with respect to their off-axis performance, maintaining a strong center image even when seating off to the far left or right edges of our long sofa. Detail and separation within the soundstage is excellent, and the speakers themselves completely disappear, which means it is an incredibly difficult speaker to locate in three-dimensional space. As for dynamics, the 805s are equally impressive, though a touch of volume is required for them to reach their fullest potential, but nowhere near as much as what we found with the 702 signatures. When playing back cinematic content at reference levels, I would advocate for a sub or two, but for everyday listening and for most music, the 805 has what it takes to satisfy. As for comparisons, I'm going to start with the Focal KANTA number 1, which is a similar loudspeaker in both design and price. But I prefer the B&W. The KANTA is great, arguably one of Focal's best regardless of price. But for the money, I think the 805 D4s sound better and look more sophisticated. Now I'm going to go into more detail about the KANTAs in our full review of that speaker, so stay tuned for that one. I was hoping to compare the 805 D4s to the PERLISTEN S4B speakers, but due to a logistical error, only one S4B showed up. So to see who will be crowned the winner in that matchup, check back for our full S4B review coming later in the year. Looks-wise, the 805 D4 is miles ahead of the PERLISTEN, and given the almost $10,000 a pair price tag of the S4Bs, they're going to have to be pretty damn special to best what we've already experienced here with the B&W. Other notable comparisons would be the Elysians from Wharfedale, Mission's new 770, and maybe our custom Cornwall 4s. While we haven't heard the Elysian 1 bookshelf speakers, we have heard the 4s, and they are amazing. Not to mention, more full range than the 805 D4s for roughly only $1,000 more. As for the Missions, they're also going to save you money over the B&Ws while giving you a taste of the truly high-end. The 770s are going to sound fuller and warmer tonally compared to the 805s. They're definitely a stylistic departure from the B&Ws, possessing a vintage flair that you know I like. But style aside, I prefer the more precise sound of the B&Ws. As for our Cornwall 4s, I still love them, and I think our choice of finish still ranks among the best we have ever seen. But like with all horn speakers, they're kind of their own thing. If accuracy is important to you, the 805s are the clear winner and will present you with more consistent sonic results. With respect to the less expensive B&W 705 S3 we just reviewed, The 805D4 is hands down the better speaker on its own, straight up with no help, either by way of EQ or tone controls. So if you are a purist, one who believes in good design and engineering coming first, with tweaks being a distant second or not part of the conversation at all, know that the 805D4 is the B&W you should be looking at. But if the 805's $8,500 repair asking price is too much, know that with a bit of experimentation and use of things like tone controls or PEQ, you can get the 705 S3s to roughly match what's possible with the 805D4. Fully dialed in, I still feel the 805's superior cabinet design is audible, resulting in an overall cleaner, more precise sound throughout, but it is subtle. I also believe that the Diamond Tweeter toes that line of detail and refinement without becoming fatiguing at all volumes, whereas the 705's tweeter can ring a little when really pushed or when listening to poor recordings, making the 805 the better high-frequency all-rounder. But again, it's close. If you can afford the 805D4s, get them. Never look back. They will easily be the last speaker you ever buy. But if you don't have $8,500 and you want a similar B&W experience, you can get 90% of the way there with the 705 S3s and some tinkering. In listening to the new 805D4 bookshelf speakers from Bowers & Wilkins, I am reminded of why, all those years ago, I begged, borrowed, and maybe sort of stole a little in order to call the first gen 800 Diamonds my very own. I don't know if there is a speaker that I have loved more than those 800s, and I can say, without any hesitation or doubt, the 805D4s minus a bit of bass are every bit as good as I recall my 800s being, and then some. I don't know what the future will bring, but as of this review, this is my high-end reference speaker to beat. So that's it. That is now my take on Bowers & Wilkins 805D4 loudspeaker. I think it's open and shut, but we'll let Kristi weigh in this one time.
Well, thanks. Like I said in the 705 S3 review, finally, Bowers & Wilkins speakers that sound like Bowers & Wilkins.
Yeah.
I am in 100% agreement with you on this one. These are fun speakers. I mean, just listen to Bjork's album Post and try not to sing along. I challenge you.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do it. I prefer the look of the 805s to the 705s. I think I said that in the 705 review.
I think you did.
I would love to see Bowers & Wilkins take just a few more risks in the finish department.
Yeah.
I would like to see more matte finishes. I know you can get some of those in like the cheaper cheaper series, which I don't know. But I would love to see just a couple more risks taken. Specifically, I would really like to see some lighter wood veneers similar to what we did with the Cornwalls.
Ooh, now you're talking.
How amazing.
Now you're talking.
Would that look?
Take our Cornwall finish and the leather top that's on the 805D4s that the tweeter kind of sits in, make that more of like an aged saddle leather. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. That would be amazing.
Hot.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough about the design aspects, but I know that people are going to ask for comparisons on these. And before you even say anything, yes, I get it. Most of these aren't really comparable, either due to price or because they're just not remotely similar at all. Nevertheless, inquiring minds are going to want to know.
All right.
So let's
Hit me with them.
Let's just get it over with. Let's start with the Focal Utopia. Yeah, I get it. I know those are like $18,000 speakers or $14,000. I don't know. They're a lot.
16 grand.
16. Okay, whatever. I was in the ballpark. I know that those were some of the more impressive bookshelf speakers that we've ever personally had in our house. So I'm curious, and I'm sure others are as well, like how would you compare those two speakers?
If the Focal Utopia Evo bookshelves are here, the 805D4s are right here. The Focal Utopia Evo bookshelves are still marginally better. Specifically with respect to the absolute almost 180 degree, just holographic, to hell with the boundaries of your room soundstage that they throw. They also have arguably just a little bit more refinement in between the speakers themselves in terms of center imaging and separation inside that soundstage. But for about half the price, like I said, the 805D4s, they're like right here, like right here. I would be happy with either. And if it were, well, it would be me and my money. I would buy the 805D4s knowing that they are just a hair lesser, if you will, than the Focals, but I'd rather have $8,000 in my bank account.
Okay, cool. All right, so moving on to another absolutely unrelatable speaker, the KLIPSCH SCALA. Look, people are going to ask.
How would you compare an automobile to a rocket? I want to know all the ways. Okay. Well, I can say this much. The B&Ws are far easier to live with, incorporate into one's room, and get the most out of across all genres of music and movies. The Scalas are amazing. They still rank among one of the most transformative music experiences I've ever had in a home. But that isn't to say that they were the easiest speaker to live with, that they sounded that way with everything that we played through them, because that wasn't the case. So if you're looking for an all-rounder, and again, want to save money, the 805D4 is the better speaker. But yeah, I love the Scalas, but full honesty, I would probably pick the 805D4s because I think long-term, I would get just a little bit more out of them across everything that I want a speaker to do.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But for me, if I had zero concerns about cost or space, things that are really important, those Scalas are still going to be my number one.
Okay.
But I think that the 805s are a heck of a lot more practical.
Yeah.
And come closer to giving that livelier sound than just about anything I can recall. So I could totally see somebody feeling, pretty similar about the two experiences.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to another completely unrealistic comparison.
Okay.
Look, here's the thing. If we ever say that we like anything, it's going to get asked about.
All right. Hit me with it.
Okay. Bang & Olufsen's Baolab 28s.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my gosh.
Right in the face.
I mean, oh, boy. Oh, man. This one's hard.
Start with the simple things. So from a design perspective, which one do you like better?
I think they're both really cool, but I take issue with both of them. The B&W needs to have more finish options. I still prefer the look of the older 800 series, specifically the 800D2 that I had. And if that look was still present, or those finishes were still present in the D4 models, I would probably feel 180 degree different than what I'm saying now. That said, as much as I love the 28s from Bang & Olufsen, there's certain aspects of their design that I'm like, for all of your forward thinking, this is how you implemented it, specifically like the cable management from the base unit module into the speaker itself, I think is really wonky and kind of stupid. So they both aren't perfect, although once set up and I'm enjoying them, I get past it. Oh man, this sucks. The Bang & Olufsen's can kind of sound however you want, so they have that flexibility. You don't have to worry about things like amplifiers or system matching or any of that nonsense. So for a high-end sounding, set it and forget it, plays nice with everything speaker, the 28's about as good as it gets. But if you are a traditional audiophile or just music lover, and you have, say, an amplifier that you love, and you've had it for years, and you've had a preamp that you took some time in curating and getting for yourself, then you're going to want the B&W.
Robinson, you're beating around the bush. What do you think?
What do I think?
Yes.
I'm saying I'd be happy with either, but do we have a channel? Or am I on a desert island? Because if we have a channel, it's if we have a channel and I'm always evaluating stuff and bringing you my thoughts, That's the number one reason why the 28s aren't still here. They're just not a tool that I can rely on to do that, whereas the 805s, I can trust to evaluate anything. And so, yeah, I guess the 805s are the better all-rounder.
Jesus Christ. All right. Now, truly the dumbest.
The dumbest one?
The dumbest comparison question. These versus the formation duos.
These.
Okay.
Hold on. Before we get out of here, I have one for you.
Oh, okay.
I have one for you. See, I can be a clever kid. Not comparable because they are two different style of designs, but 805 D4s, Concept 50s from KACOUSTICS.
I mean, I honestly feel that for 99% of people out there in the world, most of us, including us, like could not plop down $8,500 or more for anything. You know,
it would be an investment that would take some planning for sure.
Definitely would take some planning.
Yeah.
So I think looking at something like the KACOUSTICS or the Bowers & Wilkins 705 S3 is just a more realistic opportunity.
Knowing full well that even though it is more realistic, that's still a lot of money.
It's still a lot of money.
Still a lot of money.
But it's nowhere near.
It's not $8,500 and it ain't 16 grand.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, guys, that is now our review of Bowers & Wilkins' just fabulous 805 D4 bookshelf loudspeaker. What did you guys think? Let us know down in the comments below. And I don't really have a question of the day. Do you have a question of the day for this? I don't have one.
You know, I just would be curious to know, what are you looking forward to as we close out the year?
Ooh, kind of unrelated.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be about...
Doesn't have to be about the speaker.
Or music or hi-fi or speakers, period, in general. Like, just like life. Like,
what are you looking forward to
as the end of the year comes out, or comes to a close?
All right. Well, there you have it. That's the question of the day. So sound off in the comments below. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Go ahead and ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links that Kristi left for you down below, know that that is a great way that you have continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we do here. And both of us thank you very much for doing that. Speaking of thanks, I would like to just give another quick shout out to this video's sponsor, headphones.com. Please go check them out. They're a great company to work with, and we really appreciate them sponsoring this episode. So thank you very much. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile, and that is it for us today. So remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and we're going to see you on the next video. Bye.